Are you that? I'll give you a little high five. Nice to see ya. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to ask you specifically, because I just ran across, I know you have your own podcast. So let's start there.
Yes.
Tell the people who might be watching or people who are going to watch later, because I'm going to put this on YouTube and other places. Number one, let me introduce you, Dana Wilson, also known Dana Danes. Has been out there with Justin Timberlake for years and years and years, like I said, and also master teacher. I know, master teacher on convention. You do all styles, so not just one specific thing. So can be on commercials, in music videos, on tours, in film, just does everything. So I just want to give you that props at the beginning.
Thank you.
But also has a podcast. So tell us what you've been talking about on your podcast, because that relates to kind of the shift that we're all talking about. Because you've actually been interviewing people for a long time. What was your first one? I talked to you about this a long time ago. You had a first version of this kind of.
Right. Well, yeah, sort of a first different version. And I think, in a creative life, you start seeing themes coming up. Like, it turns out I am more interested in dancers than I am in dance itself. Like, I think that if robots were the dancers, I would not be doing this still.
Yeah.
I actually, I don't know. I am kind of interested in robotics, but the humans, the human dancers are the thing that I like most about dance, the community, the people. So many, many years ago, and I think this is what you're talking about, I created a web series called, I get it mixed up with the title of my podcast because they're kind of similar. It was called More Than Moves. So More Than Moves TV is still on YouTube, and they're a series. It's only 4 episodes, although I did shoot 5. I'm sitting on one. They're like 20-minute episodes, and it's basically a late night talk show format, but for dance. And I am the host of this show, and we have live performances and guests and panels and all sorts of interesting stuff. At the time, oh God, year might have been like 2012, maybe? I'm not sure. So many, many moons ago, I didn't know as much about YouTube and creating content as I do now. I did 4 episodes. They were 20 minutes each, and it cost me like thousands of dollars. So I couldn't maintain. Knowing what I know now, I would have made each of those 4 20-minute episodes 1 minute each and released them throughout for 4 months. But
exactly.
So they were big bites, but they're quality content. I'm still very proud of them. And what that sparked in me is this keen interest in developing careers and finding out what works for the people that are working. And then seeing maybe we can all apply what works for those people that are working and see if it works for us.
Exactly.
So that's more or less what I'm doing with the podcast. It is geared toward, the podcast, by the way, is called Words That Move Me.
Okay.
And it is geared towards all creative types, but specifically dancers that want to navigate their creative career with clarity and confidence, which especially at this time when the world seems to be on fire, can be challenging.
Yes.
And so I'm having a ball with it. I'm on my 28th episode. This week will be episode 28. I started in January, and I don't plan on stopping.
Yeah. Well, so, and you have, and if for people who are listening, just it's only audio, correct?
Correct. The podcast is just audio.
Okay, because some podcasts have it's
a video component.
So, yeah.
Well,
so,
here's the truth.
A distinct voice. So, I mean, you could be in radio if you really want to.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It is something I'm becoming more familiar with and more confident about, and a tool that I'm like, ooh, she needs work, like training and relaxation and maintenance and all the good stuff. So a little bit of clarification. Most of my interviews now are done via Zoom, and it's odd, but in Zoom, you don't get the audio only record capture. So when I record them in Zoom, I have video, period. So I'll sometimes add those in just for, I have patrons. I have a Patreon account. So sometimes my patrons get bonus video content. Occasionally I'll put little clippets on the IG as well. But the video, I think, is it's supplemental. We're not performing. We're not doing anything interesting. Uh-oh.
Right.
Got one. So yeah, that's the pod. Words that move me. I'm super into it.
Well, so how long is each episode?
Good question. Depends. And they're not all interviews. Several of them are what I call monologues or self-dialogues, because all the different versions of myself talking to myself. Those ones are usually like 20 minutes long. Interviews I try to keep to an hour or less. I think Nick Palmquist and I talked for a long time. I have an upcoming episode with my mime coach. You did mention I'm a multidisciplinary type. I mime. I don't know if I would call myself a mime. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but I have my mime coach on, and he's just the most knowledgeable guy in the field that I know. He studied directly with Marcel Marceau, and he has a lot to say. So we talk for more than an hour, I think, but between 20 minutes and an hour. Clearly, I'm long-winded.
That's good. Well, because you're talking about words that move you, so you should have a lot to talk about.
And I've been keeping notes, girl, this whole career of mine. I keep quotes, I keep notes, I keep lessons learned. I'm a journal type. I have a bookshelf over here. This, by the way, is my house. Hi. That's my bookshelf.
Oh my goodness.
And at least one of those full frames is just notebooks. And I'm a journaler. I like to document and archive.
If you were a songwriter, you would be Taylor Swift.
I might. I mean, geez, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Right? Well, so I just know that there are, in this whole conversation about shifting online, you've been there before. So a lot of people, when I talk about this particular platform for Icons of Online Movement, or even just the level up conversation that we're having, it's been more about the most recent shift, because there have been fitness instructors and athletes who have been doing the workout, the health and fitness side of things online. It has been the most recent shift of dance professionals, choreographers, creative directors going, we have nowhere else to be but online. That has made the shift kind of the more immediate thing. So I caught a glimpse of, it was kind of like this really fast-paced, fast-forwarded version of you showing people
my Zoom tutorial.
Zoom. Exactly, the Zoom tutorial. And I had to play it a few times, and so I was like, what is she doing?
Oh yeah, I gave you hyperlapse.
Yeah.
That was the hook.
Exactly, the hook. And so I wanted to kind of just say, what was the motivation for that? Where did you decide that you needed to give the tutorial, because obviously people need it, but why you, why now, why that for this space?
That is a lovely question. I think I put myself into lockdown, maybe even slightly before most people did. I went into a self-quarantine on March 6th. That's when I stopped leaving the house. I have asthma. I have had pneumonia in the past. I'm just not messing with it. So I, at that point, immediately shut myself down. And that's around the same time that some people started doing like, well, ABT isn't open. I'm going to teach on my IG. And a lot of people teaching class for free. I got very excited. So I'm like inside my house and I'm training every day more than ever. And I was like, this is rad. And then I talked to my at home, like the dance studio that I'm from in Colorado, Michelle Latimer. She and I had a phone call and she was like, listen, this is kind of, I was like, isn't it great? And she's like, well, this is kind of killing me actually, because I'm not allowed to open my doors. I have to still pay rent on my building, but all of my students are leaving because there's all this free training available.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh man, the dance studio economy got so flipped on its head. I mean, all of us got flipped on our head, but the dance studios and studio owners. So I started kind of bleeding for them. I put out my feelers to the dance studios that I'm very close with, that I've taught with in the past. And I said, hey, I am available. I'm not doing anything else. Let me help you. I'll make these tutorials for you. Yeah. I'll teach Zooms once a week. Yeah. Let's talk out a pay structure that you feel is fair, that you feel is sustainable, and I will teach for you until your doors are open. So that's what I did. And during the process of that, I learned obviously a lot about Zoom. And I had several of those dance studio owners ask me if I would train their dance teachers.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh, okay. So there's maybe if you're feeling that way, maybe more people feel that way as well. So I decided to put the tutorial together for all those dance teacher types out there that are hustling, man. All teachers, actually. I've got 2 music teachers in my family that teach in schools that are just like, wow, music so hard, Zoom so hard. How do you make something that's so dependent on timing and togetherness available on the other side of a screen with all the lag?
All the lag. Well, and I don't know that you can really like have that hearing, you know, like if you're a voice teacher and you're like, are they on pitch? You know what I mean? Like who, and it's just hard. You know what I mean? So I feel for
it's so hard, but it's, yeah, it shows how resourceful we are though. I mean, you name it, I've seen hairstylists like teaching people how to cut their own hair. I've seen vocal training, all the physical training. I mean, we're getting creative, and and that is inspiring to me. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like dancers are inherently creative, and those who are visionary in the sense of creating their own projects have really come up with a lot of great work. Because it's been forced upon them. I know that for me, I wrote my first ebook while it hasn't come out yet, but it's in the works as far as being converted. But as far as like in lockdown, I'm like, I have time, that one project that I was, not just kind of putting off or whatever. And I feel like so many people have done that in this time. Those who have not been, personally affected by their health or something like that have really used this time, for good. And so, because you've been in this kind of community development, I would say, because you work with SAG-AFTRA and, unions and with Dancers Alliance, and, really commend you for always kind of being there as the supportive, knowledgeable resource for dancers and choreographers, to really say what is next for the community and how do we really lift up this initiative without diminishing the in-person aspect of what is really necessary for some dancers to really learn and get better. Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm going to give you a very broad answer first, and then maybe we'll talk some nuts and bolts. I think we'll have to, and as I try to maintain this in my normal work, this is unusual circumstances, but notification. I try to be so tight that I can be loose, so prepared that I can kind of freestyle when we're there, so ready that so with a plan that even when things change, I'm like, oh no, that's okay because I planned for this, which means I'm prepared with that. So I could definitely do that and I can wiggle on that. I think we have to be so loose and malleable with whatever shape our industry takes next that we can still make, but we have to be so tight together that we don't start unraveling all the progress we've made in times past. So right now, specifically on the economics of it all, I don't know many people that are still working at the same level that they were pre-virus and pre, social and civil unrest. There is a lot moving right now. And I don't know many people that are moving money the same way that they were in February, for example. So I think that there's a bit of an instinct to just say yes to whatever comes up. But I would love to see people be so tight, so unified that we maintain the same standards that we had with our industry work before, our Dancers Alliance rates. And I know SAG-AFTRA is doing a great job at educating and enforcing their contracts, their standards. Nothing is changing as far as that goes. But with non-union work, it's a little bit harder to regulate and educate because there are new dancers you know, it was just a huge graduation season just happened. I know several graduated dancers that are moving to LA or New York, and they're just like, what's happening? This was their plan, right? It was their plan from, you know,
childhood.
So I say you've got to be loose, and you've got to like kind of keep your finger to the wind and move with the course of change. But you also have to be tight in ways that are like, nope, I'm standing firm on this with love. That's a no for me because X. So tight and loose is my answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, and what do you think is a skill? Like I am going to be doing a few tutorials, not necessarily on Zoom, but just resource based. What do you think as far as what you've had to learn and absorb as far as programming wise? Like I know that just being on social media is a chore for some people. Like they're just not like they're just not in it, you know, like maybe they've gotten on Instagram or maybe they saved their Facebook because their parents are on it or something like that. But you know, but they haven't, they're like, wow, so how do I get those ads? Or how do I boost my Instagram post? Or how do I need to be on Zoom, or do I need to have a webinar? Or like, what kind of, you know what I mean? Like, do I need a product? Or, you know what I mean? So there's so many things that, and I'm just going to kind of cover a few of them in some of the dialogues that I'm not having a podcast, but I'm going to do some IG lives about that. But what are the programs that you live by? Like I'm a Mac person. I don't know if you're a Mac or a PC, but if you are on your Mac, like you have, I don't know, Adobe, or like, what are your go-tos?
Yeah. I'm a Adobe Creative Suite person. I use Photoshop. I make all my own flyers because I think of things fast and I need to promote things fast, and I don't always have time to talk to an editor or a designer and do the back and forth. It's like a little bit less blue. Can you make the title over here? Can you move that? I'm just like, I'll sit with myself and I'll do it in 30 minutes, which honestly, it shows. Like I can tell the difference between something I did and something a professional did, but not all the time does it need to be that thing. Now, if it can be, if I have the time and if I have the resources to do that, I love to do that because I mean, like I said, it's clear. You can tell when it was me or when it was a professional. I also have designers and graphic people in my life that I love giving work to. That makes me so excited. But I do personally have a what I would call a slightly more than baseline understanding of Photoshop, and I use Premiere Pro to edit video. I am about as comfortable in Premiere Pro as I am in a freestyle circle. Like I can work my way around. And After Effects is something I also got relatively comfortable with, although not so much anymore. But yeah, I love Adobe. I love the resources that they have online. There's easy tutorials everywhere. You can learn how to do something basic very fast, and you can learn how to do something complicated in a pretty short amount of time, relative. I'm a Mac person. I wouldn't be if it weren't for AirDrop and freaking FaceTime. Those are the only things keeping me there. I'm so annoyed by these. I'm so annoyed that there's a new charger and port and new thing all the time.
That's how they get your money though, right?
I get it. Oh, I get it. And they're very good at it. So I manage, with the podcast, I use Adobe Audition to edit sound. And I have a server. I have 2 assistants that help me out with that because almost every single day of the week, the podcast is doing something. And every single day we're engaging with our audience. That is something that to me doesn't feel like work because, as I mentioned before, the people are the part that I love about this community. And so that part's fun to me. I know that it isn't for everyone. I do think that especially right now in lockdown, having a social presence is important because it's unfortunate, but out of sight, out of mind is a thing here in the commercial world where visibility, right? Like it's a visual medium, and being visible is important for most people. There is a point and there is a person, several people who don't have social media and they're fine. But these are people who have done work that stands on its own. These are people that have relationships that are solid and probably long lasting. I'd say if you're a person who is working your way in and working your way up, it can be a really, really effective tool, the social space. And honestly, it can also be fun. It can also be creative. That's a mindset. That is such a mindset. With that being said, I think that Instagram today is different than Instagram was in February. I really believe in it being used to share information. I'm so excited about how much information is being shared on Instagram instead of, how about this? Instead of information, like very about the self, like it was the into me formation. And now it's like information about the things. And so it's cool to see that happening there. But I also am weary and suspicious in my ways of the Zuck and the Facebook and all the personal information that we are telling the world about ourselves and our alignments and our allegiances and whatnot. But again, to share your talents, to show what you are capable of, and to prove that you are interested in doing more of this dance art thing, and I think it's a great place to put it.
Awesome. Well, I know that you mentioned the Zuck and the Facebook, but your website is the Dana Wilson.
Yes, I'm a thedanawilson.comer.
I looked you up and I was like, Dana Wilson, it was like a cellist or so, and I was like, wait, no, that's not the right one.
See, we got to work on that. We got to work on my Googleage.
No, you were right. You were right there.
There's a composer as well. There's a Dana Wilson that's a composer.
Yes. Well, so you're in good company.
I like that they're artists. Yeah, that's good news. I think I'll be doing a reviz on the website as you experienced for sure, being a dancer on TV and then becoming doctor, becoming intellect, becoming different person, the way that we, isn't it weird? Like I'm this, but the way that I show myself to the world, the words that we use, words are so important. And the actual format that we show ourselves to the world does tell people a lot about us. And as we change, those things change too. So I think that it's time for a redo on my website, I think.
I'm redoing mine as well. I feel like everyone is always tweaking and rebooting a little bit. And I know that there's a lot that you can do on your own. And then, I just look at everybody else's and kind of go, oh, that's good.
That's a good idea. Oh, I like that. I like the way that makes me feel. That makes me think that you're this type of person.
Exactly.
And this also is a good time to be getting more familiar with that. I think it's very unique. I think dancers as independent contractors, we're our own storefront. And social, your socials, your Instagram can serve as that. But a website, I mean, you have so much more control, so much more freedom and privacy. And it's a thing that right now I think people are getting hip to. I know many people taking this time to redo their reel, redo the website, make sure that the storefront is up and running.
Exactly.
And it's odd that, not odd, it makes total sense actually, that as the storefronts out there might be hurting, small businesses out there are hurting, we're doing everything we can to make sure that our small business, super small individual businesses are doing okay and going to make it.
Yeah. Well, so what is your favorite platform and where should people go there to find you? Which one? Because I know there's so many that we can all use. But
I really think right now my podcast is my favorite platform. I'm doing less personal sharing as Dana Daners on Instagram, but that is because I engage there all the time with my Words That Move Me community. I'm on Instagram at least once every single day on Words That Move Me podcast. We have the podcast Instagram page. My personal page is Dana Daners. And to find the website, if you're not to find the podcast, if you're not an Instagram person, it lives on my website at thedanawilson.com/podcast, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube, Words That Move Me podcast. That is the place.
And I want to just tell everybody that you should go, even if you go to the podcast and all of that, but if you go to the Instagram that you have for Words That Move Me, it is very magazine-esque,
thank you.
Because Instagram can be kind of like spotty, and then it can be very themed and controlled and very, you know, directional. And I feel like your Words That Move Me is very like, hey, this is who it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's very...
What you see is what you get, and what you hear is the...
Yeah.
It's like, yes. So... Yeah, it's for me, I hired my sister-in-law to do the cover art for the podcast. I think it's beautiful. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. That's what it is. And then it's about the words. What I'm working to do is make it a place for discourse. And it's interesting, until recently, Instagram has not been much of a place for conversation. It's a place for taps and quick, like prayer hands and hearts. But not a lot of deep diving, and that's changed a little bit. People are really using their voice on Instagram. I am hoping to be a part of that because I really am interested in the conversation, not the monologue. I love discourse. I love that. So that's what the Instagram is becoming. Please, go give Words That Move Me podcast on IG a like and give us a conversation, give us a talk. I love back and forth.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for chatting, because I know
that
it's
you're
pleasure. A busy bee, so I will let you go, but I will definitely post this in multiple places and link to you. So
yes,
have a
happy to share.
Yes, have a good day and a good week, and
thank you, Sandra.
Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. You too. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, how do I do this? Do you do it? I'm gonna wait until you're gone.
Okay, bye.